actually kind of feels like I can finally give an overview of the energies for what the rest of the year is going to be like. However, it will also be changing um, almost every month, just because the energies right now are so big. I would suggest getting a notebook and a pen and taking note if something kind of gives you a little aha, or just being aware of how this energy lands for you, and then how to then work with the energy that is showing up, because this is a lot about our personal experience, and being intentional within our own actions. So there's different aspects to this. And you guys know I always say that the astrology is like a weather report, right? So it's just like if you were to look on the news, it's going to be cloudy outside, maybe chilly, grab a coat, right? It's going to be raining, you may want to wear a rain jacket, or you may want to take an umbrella with you for the day. The astrology is kind of the same way. And I feel like everything is changing, and the astrology is even changing. And I know I said this months ago, but like this is when it begins to change. Okay. So yes, we're still looking at the astrology. Yes, I'll be talking about the main planets. But also one of the things that I've noticed personally is when I first started looking at astrology, everybody that was an astrologer really paid attention to more of the personal planets. That never really felt right for me. Okay. I always felt like we needed to look beyond that. I felt like we needed to be looking at um, the outer planets as a whole, and how they work together for us, and with us, and show us the energies um, from a grander standpoint. Now, again, that being said, with the messages that I've been getting, we're looking at this as a galactic experience now, instead of just an Earth experience. And it's hard to even explain that as I'm saying it. So I'm just going to go back to some of the basics. So the personal planets, this is stuff that most people, if you look at astrology, this is what most people would know. If you hear somebody say, what is your sign? They're talking about your sun sign, right? So your sun is usually what people know. This is like back in the day where you'd look in the paper and find your birthday, and that was your sign, right? So this is your sun sign, and some people call it your star sign. That is your main, like, I'm a Capricorn, right? That's your sun sign. But then we also know that our moon and our rising sign really makes a difference as to like who we are, how we show up in the world. The moon is our emotions, right? So then we have the sun, the moon, and our rising sign. The other personal planets are Mercury, which is about our communication, and Mars, which is the way we do action. And then Venus, which is our love, right? Our emotions, our emotional body, the way that we receive love, give love, the way we receive data from outside, and then the way that we process that through, right? Because if we're here on this planet to experience human experience and love, then that's what it is. The social planets are considered Jupiter and Saturn, which you guys have heard me talk about both of those before. Jupiter expands everything, makes everything bigger. Saturn is the great teacher. This is the one where I talk about Saturn being like the teacher that was really, really hard, but everybody like that went through that class knows the answers to what they need, and they know how to apply whatever they've learned in that class, right? Now, the outer planets are the ones that I personally feel make such a big impact on us, especially as we look at things from a galactic standpoint. So if you're into energy and energy healing and Reiki, and like all of the things, right? And you are understanding that there's a 3D into 5D experience that we're all going through. This is where I feel like the outer planets become more personal, even though in the past they haven't been looked at as personal. They were like, this will kind of affect the overall scheme of, the generations of your life, but it's how they're interacting now with all of the other planets that are really giving us more of a galactic experience. And that being said, what my guides have been showing me, and even as I'm talking about this right now, one of the things that my guides have shown me lately is that, yes, we are this galaxy, right? And if anybody that has taken science probably has had to build the solar system, right? The planets, and then you put all of them together: Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Earth, Sun. Like, you put them all together, right? And then you create the solar system. That is one system within the other galactic systems that are all working together. So it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. But that being said, I feel like it was important to kind of start off this call today with that broad understanding of the astrology. Okay. So when we're looking at 2023 as a whole, we're moving into some really big, major changes. Okay. I feel like it gets kicked off now in March. I know a lot of astrologers were talking about all planets direct, there's forward motion. And if you remember, I was like, not yet. I wouldn't be looking at forward motion yet. I do feel like now that we're heading into March, we will be able to have some forward motion, but we want to be very aware of how we navigate through this upcoming energy. So the one thing that I can say is be very intentional with your actions, your thoughts, your words, especially with your actions, and be really aware of if you're reacting to things or if you're responding to things. I've actually taught on this before, but if it's a knee-jerk reaction, that usually triggers emotions. You're usually not like taking a step back and looking at it from an observer standpoint, and then being able to say, ooh, how should I respond to this, right? So if it's a knee-jerk reaction, a lot of times that's super emotionally charged and maybe not always the best way that we want to respond to things. So be really aware of that. Some big players that I'm seeing in March particularly is Jupiter and Chiron. This is a 12-year cycle and it's in Aries. Aries is always about me. Like, Aries is personal, very personal. And with Jupiter expanding things, Chiron is known as the wounded healer. So I feel like this is going to amplify wounds, but it's meant so that you can heal them. Now, you guys know that I've trained with Michael Lennox, and one of the things he always says is Chiron doesn't heal by making the wounds go away, but instead it helps us transform our perceptions around the wounding. Okay, so it's really going to be important to understand that because Jupiter is an expander, and to me, it feels like it's going to amplify. Now, if you're already have done your own work, you're probably not going to have the same experience of this. This is probably going to be where you're not only have you transformed your perceptions, but now you're growing beyond whatever that initial wounding was. But if you're new, or if you have clients that are still really stuck in 3D, this is going to be really intense. I feel like for the people that haven't wanted to look at their shadow, haven't wanted to do the work, haven't done any soul growth, it could get messy for that. Okay, especially with it being Aries, which is all about me. The great thing about Aries, though, also is that it starts something new. So this is definitely a new understanding with a broader purpose around the way we show up, the way that we heal, and all of those things. Jupiter and Aries could also be expanding who you are, like allowing yourself to expand into the broader purpose of maybe your soul purpose, right? Maybe you've been held back from that, and now it's time to really move into that new higher thing. The other thing that I noticed was a Pisces stellium in the middle of March, and it's like from the 8th to the 20th ish. And that's Saturn, Mercury, Neptune, all in Pisces. Okay. Now, I do have to talk a little bit about Pisces energy because this is where we can get stuck in really like avoiding things or escaping things. The difficulties that we want to look at to overcome things in Pisces, especially with Saturn, Mercury, Neptune, right? Saturn being the great teacher. So if we're looking at this, what we want to overcome is avoidance or escaping things, victim mentality, self-pity. This is where, like, I don't know what to do and I want somebody to just tell me. That's not going to benefit you. We're really going to need to step into responsibility and accountability when it comes to our own stuff. Okay. if you feel like I don't know what to do, of course it's fine to reach out and get help, but do that from a place of, okay, this is where I feel like I'm stuck. What can you help me see that will help me grow, right? Because anywhere that you're in victim mentality or not in your power is going to be really um it's going to be easy to get lost in the abyss of Pisces if you're not having that Saturn structure of responsibility and accountability. The interesting thing about Saturn and Pisces, what the original, what my guide said, and I think I mentioned this on the last recording too, something about making the magical manifest. It's kind of along the same lines, but what they said today when I was looking at Saturn and Pisces, it says, giving structure to the formless. So there's something in that about what are the things that the dreams that you have that right now are formless. But if you just had a little bit of structure and discipline, you could make your dream a reality, right? The good thing is Saturn's going to show us what isn't working, but where things aren't working, it's what do you need? Like what discipline do you need? And what actions do you need to take around what isn't working? Is it that you find a whole new place to work from? Is it that you have a whole new approach? Is it that you scrap it completely? Or is it that you just need to tweak a few things? And if you were just a little bit more intentional, right? Going back to the idea of being intentional, then it could really make it happen. Okay. So it's really interesting because there's this dichotomy of mystery and unknowable things in Pisces, but Saturn is bringing the structure to allow them to be knowable, which sounds really bizarre even as I'm saying it. The other really big energy that's happening is Pluto at these final degrees of Capricorn. Okay. Now, this is going to be toggling back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius, and we don't fully integrate Pluto into Aquarius until 2024. And I don't think it's until like the end of 2024, like November. So this next year and a half or so, we're going to be toggling between Pluto and a Capricorn and Pluto and Aquarius. So we're going to be kind of going back and forth. Pluto is always about long-term growth because this is a slow-moving planet. It stays in planets for a very long time. And the overall theme of this is balance of power in your own life. Okay? Because Capricorn is all about the old structures, the old way of doing things. Aquarius is all about the new and the collective and all of that. So with this being at the final degrees, this is like, okay, so if I were to just say how this is going to feel for the next year, is if you are on like a marathon, this is the final stretch, but it's a marathon. So you've been doing this for a long time and there's still a ways to go, right? But you're at that final thing where it's the last lap or the last stretch of this long-term experience that we've been growing through, which was Pluto Capricorn. So we're going to be getting, again, a little bit of both as we move through the energy moving forward. It's going to be really interesting, guys, just to see how that's playing out. But basically, let's look at Pluto as Pluto's always the rising from the ashes, right? Like burning something down so that the new things can go. So if you imagine a fire, right? If a wildfire comes through, it burns down all of the things that were old, worn out. And then once the ash settles and once that all kind of clears, then the new stuff starts growing. We're in that stage where it just cleared out everything in Capricorn that is not meant to go forward into this next phase of Aquarius. But now it's going to be burning through everything at the beginning of Aquarius that we don't need to take with us in the long term as well. So it's an interesting thing. Pluto is the cosmic purifier. So it's purifying everything as it moves through. It brings us really good stuff too, but it's also not always the most fun. And I feel like this final degree of Capricorn is probably where people are feeling like that. It's almost like exhaustion, like we're worn out. Um, and there may be a little bit of hesitation because we aren't sure what's going to come, or like what's the next thing that's going to burn down, right? And I don't want to make it sound like it's something negative, because it isn't, but it's just knowing that that's what Pluto does.